It's time we are ranking the top 10 San Francisco 49ers players for the 2025 season and nominating who's going to be advancing to potentially the NFL top 100 on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you as always at BD Peacock at Coach Crocky on Twitter. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. Thanks for hanging out with us. And if you're new to the show, welcome. We appreciate you all the same. And stick with us. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts, and say hi to us. Hit the thumbs up if you're already subbed up. Let us know you stopped by. We're doing this one live, which we do at times, and you might want to hit the notification bell so you know when we are live, so you can jump in the chat and hang out with us as we do it. Today, we have been tasked, Croc, with this is a monumental task because this is going into the archives for the ages as network-wide we come together at Locked On to build the NFL top 100. The NFL 100, according to the Locked On Network, is coming. And Croc, what we have to do is give our network folks our list of the top 49ers that should be considered for the top 100. And so what we must do is rank them ourselves first before we pass that on. And is there 10 guys that should be considered for the top 100? Where might that tier break be? And how do we see this team in 2025? And so I guess first, Croc, we have to kind of set some ground rules as to how we decide this. This is for 2025. This isn't for 2026. This isn't for necessarily week 17. This is for this season, how these players are, we expect right now. So a little projection, because we haven't seen 2025 yet. This isn't about who was better in 2024. So a little projection, but we're not talking about 3 years down the road. We're talking about who's better for the 49ers right now as we head into the year and who we might nominate for that top 100 list that we're going to vote on network-wide, Croc. And you mentioned a little something to me off the air about the 49ers depth, which is much less than in years past. There's some very familiar names that would be on this top 10, no doubt. They're no longer on the roster. But there's still a lot of star power on this team too, Croc. And there's still a lot of players that are at the top or the top player at their position group in the NFL.
One thing with that is with some of these names I saw on there, right? We talked about the star power and all that. I think one of my biggest takeaways, and that's why these exercises are kind of fun, because you do we know, 49ers, terrific roster. 49ers, terrific players. We know that. When you start trying to rank them, and then you compare it to even last season. So entering 2024 season, a lot of these players are on that list, but I think they're viewed a little differently. And that's the part I want to have that conversation about, because I think that their best players are the best players. But are they heading into this season? Are you as confident about what they are going to be as opposed to what we expected them to be last season?
It's a great point. And I think there's two players that are names that you could argue for number one that I would not put number one on the list for the 49ers, because it's a little bit more difficult to project exactly what they are in 2025. And that's Trent Williams and Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you feel about those two players. Would you rank either one of them at one? Are they in consideration for you at the top spot? Because I've got a name who I think should be at the top spot, but to me, it comes down to three guys.
No, at the top spot I have. Do I give who I have at the top spot?
Yeah, well, let's hash it out. Who's number one?
Oh, okay, wait. Here's the other question too. Because quarterback just weighs more in any rankings. The quarterback weighs more than the rest of the guys. So do we just by default put Purdy at the top because he played, and that wasn't even his best season? Not his fault, but it just wasn't his best season in the sense of just what the results were. This is tough. George Kittle. I have George Kittle at the top.
I love it, man. I love it. I love having George Kittle at the top. And it's so tight for me for number one. My number one is still Nick Bosa, and the quarterback conversation is interesting. I don't think that I think you have to consider some positional value, but I think for a list like this, positional value matters a little bit less than if you were like drafting, which players you value the most and which players you would want moving forward. I think it's a little bit different conversation. I think we're just talking about the best players. And in that conversation, running backs, quarterbacks, I think get a little bit closer than if we were talking about it a little bit differently. And I love that you mentioned George Kittle. And if you think about the 49ers players, I think the two guys the 49ers have that are the best at that position in the NFL at this point in their career, it's somewhat undisputed, is I think it's George Kittle is the top tight end, and I think is the top linebacker. And even though I would rank Nick Bosa as number one, you can't say that about him at defensive end, even though he is, a top 5 guy there.
Right.
But,
and the impact. So not only being the best at your position, but the positional, like the impact that you have on 49ers offense or 49ers defense. Because Kyle Juszczyk is the best fullback in the league. Spoiler alert, he didn't make the top 10 for me. That's another fullback. Best
that's
fullback.
Another interesting player. I think because where the depth is, like, D Ford in his prime, Talanoa Hufanga in his prime, Deebo Samuel in their prime, they would all go ahead of Kyle Juszczyk. I think where the 49ers right now, I think Kyle Juszczyk is on my top 10 right now. But
the way that I viewed it was just, if I was just drafting 49er players.
Yeah. For 1 year.
The quarterback weighs more, but if I'm just drafting players, where do I have, where am I drafting these guys? Who am I taking? Kind of excluding the quarterback position because that's the most important. So you just draft him higher. But once you start getting to the next guys, and we're talking about for this year, and that's tough too, because even positional value, Nick Bosa, like that should be number one. But George Kittle was just so good for the 49ers. Like there was no, with some of these guys, you could say there was a little bit of a step back, right? Nick Bosa, it wasn't the defensive player of the year version of Bosa for whatever reasons. He wasn't that version of himself. George Kittle was every game exactly what he was supposed to be. Like if you had this ideal version of what Kittle would be, he was that. Hey, I'm blocking my ass off. You guys throw me the ball. I'm super efficient. I'm scoring touchdowns. I'm picking up yards. We feel like he was robbed of first team All-Pro. He should have been first team. He got second team All-Pro, but it's just hard for me to put anybody over him, even at this stage. Even as a guy who I was like, get rid of him a year too soon as opposed to a year too late. Like I was saying that, but I still value him, the player, a lot, to have him over even Nick Bosa, who I think is obviously a terrific defensive end.
I think the message that it sends, if we put George Kittle number one, is the correct message, because it's a tragedy that he wasn't first team All-Pro. And I know that he will be too low on any voted list because the average, even analyst, probably doesn't give George Kittle enough credit for the blocking side of his game and how important that is to the 49ers and how the offense runs. And it's a shame and it's wrong. So I like where your head's at, Croc. And I think just a matter of making a point, George Kittle, number one.
Yeah.
Let's mark it down. George Kittle is our number one San Francisco 49er going into 2025. Then is it Bosa then at number two? That would mean Warner 3, unless you have, like, I think that's my top tier. I think it's Kittle, Bosa, and Warner. I had him Bosa, Warner, Kittle coming into this, but it's a tier. And I'd be okay with shaking him up because, like we mentioned earlier, Fred Warner, he's the other guy with Kittle that is the best at his position in the NFL.
That's another one. And again, there's some projection with it as well, right? I mean, this is a guy who is terrific every season. And we know, hey, he played most of this year with a fracture in his ankle. So we didn't even see the best version of him. And now you're like, hey, this year, hey, this is healthy Fred Warner that you're getting. And I think when you just say it like that, now Nick Bosa, we'll see. But man, like Fred Warner is the second best player of the 49ers. He just is.
Do you remember? And I think we did an entire podcast on it, or we at least led the podcast. And I think it was week 3 or 4 last year. It was like, Fred Warner is on defensive player of the year track right now. He was that good last year to start the year before he hurt his ankle, which I believe was like week 4. That's how good he was playing. He was awesome last year. And even play through that was pretty unbelievable. So I'm okay with that too. I mean, again, that's my tier. So those top 3 guys are my tier, and that's where I would draw the first line. I think Kittle, Warner, Bosa. Is that our order? I'm okay with that.
That is our order. And that is to have that kind of debate or conversation about those guys. I said that man, that's pretty good for the 49ers, just in the sense of where they are, like as far as a roster.
I would say
because there's still a couple of other one. We haven't even mentioned the quarterback yet, who definitely we know can play at a very high level. And if we're projecting, you would assume this would be the best version of Brock Purdy that you get. What does that look like? So there's that aspect of it. But those top 3 guys, terrific. There's a couple other names on there that I think people, are like, hey, I can't wait to see this guy play. So good. I'd say that good discussion with those first 3 guys. And now the next 3 guys, I think, is going to be an even tougher discussion.
I love it. Who's the next tier of San Francisco 49ers? How many should be nominated into our list of players considered for the top 100 in the NFL by the Locked On Podcast Network? Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Monarch Money. And I know this has happened to you, and it has surely happened to me. You check your bank account every so often, you think, where'd all that money go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment? It's so easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money, start building wealth. So many insights. You realize how much you're spending on food delivery, coffee every single day. Budget smarter, save more, and the easy collaboration is my favorite part. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress, which is obviously key when you're managing money with anybody. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. So do you see the next tier the same with 3 players in it? You are muted, I think.
Yeah, I was muted.
There you
go. Oh, this one is tough.
This is
because these guys they're at such different stages in their career.
Right.
So I would say this: the next 3 guys for me now, in no particular order, and then we can talk through the order. But Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey.
Yep, exactly. How do you rank them? So in past years, I think we would probably for sure have Trent and Christian McCaffrey in the first tier. And some years, Trent Williams would just be number 1 because he's that good at that position he plays. And
real quick, that was part of my thing when I started off, where like these are guys that won 100%, even entering last season would have been, I think it would have been a much tougher discussion for that. And it was just like, oh, Trent Williams, oh, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Nick Bosa.
McCaffrey was on the cover of Madden last year. McCaffrey might have been number 1 last year if you're taking positional value out of it for the 49ers, right? But coming off the injury, the year-long injury, and just enough questions about, what is he going to be? I think he's going to be good. I think Trent's going to be good. But you can't project them to be better than they have been at their prime. And how many games will those guys potentially miss? And that's kind of the reason why, for me, it's Bosa, because I think there's a little bit more projection in. This guy has been Defensive Player of the Year, and he's still like in his prime. There's not like, oh man, he might be slowing down. But Bosa should 100% be better than he was last year, right? That's kind of why I came into this and be like, well, Bosa's Defensive Player of the Year candidate every single year, and he's in his prime. That's why he was kind of number 1 for me, because you don't have to project anything, and he's already that dude and that good. Fred Warner's kind of that as well. Kittle, I could see maybe back 9 of his career potentially. Could that start to fall apart? A lot of injuries in his career. But he just doesn't get enough credit for how good of a blocker he is. Like, tight ends get credit for catching, and that's it. And that's just, it's wrong, Croc. It's wrong. So
and he's one of the best at that.
Yeah.
And he's one of the best at run after catch. And he's the best at just, for a guy that does what he does, to be the blocker that he is. So, I mean, he probably weighs the same amount as you, Peacock. You and George Kittle are probably the same height and weight right now.
I hope he's still got a few on me, but that weight it's carried very different. Yeah, I actually, when you put it like that, it shouldn't be close. I should be 20 pounds lighter than Kittle, and it might be within 5 pounds, which is not good.
Right, same height, weight, but a little bit less muscle mass.
True.
Few less tattoos. George Kittle, sneaky, kind of, a lot of tattoos got going on. Hands tatted, arms. He has a lot going on, and it kind of like flies under the radar. The tattoos, the placement of them, especially when you consider what he looked like coming into the league. Just looked like this little kid from Iowa or something. And yeah, it looks a lot different now. Got a little swag to him.
He was a lot more baby face, short hair coming out of Iowa. He's got the entire look going now, man.
Yeah. But anyways, the next three guys. So
Trent, McCaffrey, Purdy. I think it's when Trent is healthy, he's still that dude. Is there a reason we should project? John in the chat said, or no, Ian in the chat says he wouldn't be surprised if it's CMC bouncing back to the 2023 form. And I don't think we should necessarily be shocked in that. It's more about staying healthy. And if those guys are healthy, McCaffrey and Williams, they'll probably be at the best of their positions again and be awesome. And Brock Purdy, even though you can project him to be a better player potentially, and he just got paid and he's a quarterback, it's still hard for me to put him above those two. So I think I would go still Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy in this next tier.
All right. Now, I think that kind of speaks to the 49ers roster, right? Because if you go around the league and you think of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, how many top 10 quarterbacks will be, and again, taking positional value out of it, but how many top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL would be the sixth best player on their team?
Yeah, not very many. You're talking about the Goff tier, right? Dak would be for sure top. Just kind of doing it in my head. Dak is top 5 easy on the Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
It's less about Brock.
You got Micah Parsons, CeeDee Lamb, and then it's like Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I think so. The Cowboys are worse than the 49ers, though.
Cowboys are worse.
Is it a statement about Brock, or is it a statement about the Niners just have 5 Hall of Famers ahead of them?
I think it's a statement that the 49ers have 5 Hall of Famers ahead of them.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Niners still have a lot of talent, is what we're trying to say. Maybe some aging talent here, and maybe not as much depth. How much better Brock Purdy is in 2025 than he has been? Is there more ceiling for him to hit? It'll be fascinating to follow. Williams versus Christian McCaffrey.
I when they are on the field, I feel like they are both what they, as advertised, I guess you could say. So I guess the projection here is, who do we project to play more games? And then that should be the guy that's a little bit higher. We know Trent will miss 2 games.
He'll miss 2. And if he's the same guy he's been after missing 2, then he's still the best at his position in the NFL, or among them. Yeah, I'm going Williams, McCaffrey, Purdy.
All right.
You like
Williams,
it?
McCaffrey, Purdy.
All right.
Real quick, we did get an answer to our question in the chat. What quarterbacks would be like, the 6th best on their team, top 10 quarterbacks?
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts. I think that's a really good one, because that Eagles roster. Now you have to say it out loud too. You can't just say, "Oh, Jalen Hurts," because maybe you don't view him a certain way. You'd have to, all right, well, what players will you have ahead of him on that roster? And that's the Saquon,
both offensive tackles. AJ Brown,
both tackles, right?
Yeah, Jordan Mailata. I think. In fact, I think Jordan Mailata, the left tackle, and Lane Johnson's kind of like the right tackle version of Trent Williams, where he's just been so good for so long. Hall of Fame track player. Jordan Mailata, if I'm not mistaken, was Pro Football Focus's highest graded offensive lineman in the entire NFL last year.
Wow.
Left tackle. He's been pretty phenomenal.
That's 4 guys right off bat before you even. Do we even get to a defensive player yet?
I mean, Jalen Carter.
Oof.
Cooper DeJean, your boy, Devontae Smith. Yeah. Who am I'm blanking on? There's another big time defensive lineman in Philly that I'm blanking on. Right.
I don't know. Not Jordan Davis.
No. And Hassan Reddick is gone.
Fletcher Cox gone.
Nolan
They just got rid of Sweat.
Yeah, Sweat and Milton Williams both gone in free agency. Who's the other end? Oh, Brandon Graham. He's been around forever. He retired, right? Did he retire last year?
Nah, he played last season.
Yeah, okay.
I think he just finally retired.
But yeah, I mean, you can make the argument for a lot of guys, potentially 5, 6, and maybe more on the Philadelphia.
I don't think a lot of guys in the top 10.
A few guys.
I think it's Purdy. And again, a lot of it is because, look, think about it. Well, all right, we're talking about Jalen Hurts potentially being, 5th or 6th best player on his team. They just won a Super Bowl. And I think when you are the 5th or 6th best player on your team, and you're the quarterback, the most important position, and you're still viewed as a top 10 quarterback, I think you have to win a Super Bowl. And the Philadelphia Eagles like, well, we did it. Well, now it's like, wow, we came close a couple times.
Couldn't close it.
But that is the if you're not, you have a good quarterback. Jalen Hurts is a good football player. He's a good quarterback. But it's like I'm not in that top tier of quarterback, so there's other players better than me on my team. Well, I got to win a Super Bowl with this roster, and he did it.
Scoreboard. Yeah. Next, Croc, the final 4 in our San Francisco 49ers top 10, and how many of these 10 should go into the nominations for the NFL Top 100 as voted on by the Locked On Podcast Network. Next. Okay, Croc, taking a look at the San Francisco 49ers roster, I think things get a little bit more difficult. And again, we are projecting just for 1 year. These are players in 2025, the top 10 players going into this season for the San Francisco 49ers. There's a couple more guys on offense that I think deserve to be on the list. I know Brandon Ayuk's in a weird place right now, and we don't know how healthy he's going to be, but he's one of the 49ers top 10 players. Even if he doesn't come back and he's not 100% until week 10, he'll be a top 10 player on the 49ers, I would imagine, at that point. Juwan Jennings might even have a say in this, right? Kyle Juszczyk, if we're looking at the offensive side of the ball, and Dominic Pooney has to be in consideration, I think. And he is on my list, I think, for the top 10 players for the San Francisco 49ers going this year. As good as he was as a rookie, can you project another step forward in year 2? And there's so many rookies, but should a rookie make the list? Someone like Mykel Williams, potentially, for the 49ers. Diamador Lenore is absolutely on this list for me, Croc. And what about a guy like Malik Mustafa, who had such a phenomenal rookie season last year?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are going to have the same kind of list. Michael in the chat, Colton in the chat, they're pretty much right on it with who, at least for me, the next kind of 4 guys are. And I have Brandon Ayuk, Diamador Lenore, Juwan Jennings, Dominic Pooney. So I guess the biggest thing is just, okay, how do we do that order?
Your order is
that's going to be universal with those guys. Now that is me leaving out Kyle Juszczyk.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there could be a discussion made for him. He's all pro every year. He's the best player at his position every year. I just view it as if you took him out the offense, and Kyle may give us a different answer. Kyle Shanahan may say, nah, I have to have Kyle Juszczyk in there. He does too much that you guys don't recognize. But when I just look at other offenses around the league, how they're structured, and the 49ers, how they would be structured without Kyle Juszczyk, I think that they just, I don't want to be disrespectful to him, but I feel like they'd be just as good.
Okay, this is interesting. So I think it's going to be clear. I think the next 3 is going to be Ayuk, Demo, and Pooney in some order. Is that your order, those 3 guys? Oh, no, I had
Juwan Jennings
in front of Pooney. Jennings is tough for me because Jennings might be a number 3 wide receiver, and I'm not putting that over Pooney. I'm not putting that over Demo. Not putting that over Ayuk. I'm not putting that over Malik Mustafa.
I think with how Pooney played, he may be next up for real. I think it's Pooney, Lenore, Ayuk, and it's Ayuk because does he start the season? Does he not? If he misses 4 games or he misses 6 games, how do we view his season?
It's more about the unknown.
Does it take about 4 weeks for him to kind of get back in the groove? So that's the thing. Like Ayuk will probably be higher next year.
I'm kind of in on that. Pooney, Demo, Ayuk, and then we got to fight about the 10th spot, I think. Yeah? Or Demo.
Okay, so there we go.
Demo, even if Pooney takes another step, is he a better offensive lineman than Delandor Lenore? Is it a corner?
He's pretty damn good, and that positional versatility makes okay. He's got to be up there.
Yep.
But Pooney was good. He was good at right guard.
Pooney was awesome. Pooney is next, and then we're going Ayuk because of the unknown. Is going to be 9 here, but he would for sure be 7, and who knows? We might be talking about him as one of the top 5, 4 next year.
Well, heading in, if you think, and I kind of go back to 2024, heading into that season, we have been higher, and I still think the only thing that would have made him higher heading, I don't even know if you would. I mean, he was an all-pro receiver. But
yeah.
I don't know how much higher he would have been.
He would have been higher than the guys that the 49ers let go of, right? He would have been probably higher than Dre Greenlaw, and he would have been higher than any of the wide receivers, higher than Debo, and he would have been higher than
And that's part of the thing too, right? Think of some of the guys that they lost, and now you're plugging guys in, but Dre Greenlaw. Now his situation was a little interesting with the Achilles, but just the type of player that he was and losing him. Travarius Ward. I mean, he was an all-pro corner for the 49ers. Talanoa Funga. He was an all-pro safety for the 49ers. Feel like there's a lot of kind of those kind of Leonard Floyd, and he still had a double-digit sack season or close to it.
Floyd was 8.5, I believe.
All right, and that would have been the guy that you maybe would have viewed as like that's the bottom of your top 10. Even heading in, because I think the previous 3 or 4 seasons, whatever, I think he had like double-digit sacks each season, something crazy like that. So you'd have projected him to be good opposite Nick Bosa.
Yeah, I don't think Juszczyk can make the list. I especially for a player that I think his usage should drop, and he's probably not a difference-making receiver or difference-making blocker. He's just really versatile, right? And that's his strength, and it allows Kyle to do some of the things.
Can Kyle do the same things, but while using Juwan Jennings as that moving cog?
Mm-hmm. Right. He's clearly a better receiver, right? And that was kind of always the thing.
That's what the Rams did, right? With Cooper Kupp. Now, I'm not saying Juwan Jennings is Cooper Kupp or what Cooper Kupp was at the height of his career, but Cooper Kupp was always like a big slot, and they ran 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 1 back, and instead of 49ers who ran 21 personnel, 1 tight end, 2 back, or 2 backs, 1 tight end, right? And that one of that backs Kyle Juszczyk. But if you swap Juszczyk for Juwan Jennings, now you put him in motion, have him do some lead blocking, but then now you get much more in the passing game. But you get a similar physical blocking. Now, again, your style of runs, if you want to run, ISO or anything like that, that may be a little bit more difficult to do, or you don't have a lead blocker. So you have to be maybe more creative with how you pull certain guys to be able to lead block instead of having Kyle Juszczyk. But now you have less guys in the box because you have Juwan Jennings. So essentially that works as a block, him taking a guy out of there. So
the only thing that Kyle Juszczyk does better than Juwan Jennings, it's not as an inline tight end or an H-back or a receiver. It's as a fullback in the backfield. And are we sure that Juwan Jennings couldn't be good at that? Put his ass in the backfield. I would love to see that. He'll hit people. He's more athletic than Juszczyk.
He bullies DBs, and he's bigger than all of them. I don't know what that would look like if it's like, all right, every play I got to go up against Fred Warner.
It would be fun to see. It absolutely would be fun to see. And like Malik Mustafa, I really want to try to put him on this list because he was so awesome last year. He's hurt coming into the year, so a little harder to project. And on the opposite side of that, with Ayuk out, Jennings might have a huge role. And Jennings might be the 49ers leading wide receiver and potentially leading receiver. And then Ricky Pearsall, there's projection there. But I just don't know if we've seen enough to be like, yeah, he's that dude. Because there's a little too much projection, I think, for me with Pearsall. So I'm good with Jennings at 10. I like it.
All right. So all right. So what's the list?
Here we go. There's our list. Top 10 San Francisco 49ers for 2025. George Kittle 1, Fred Warner 2, Nick Bosa 3. Tier 2 is Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, and then the final group in the guys 7 through 10, Diamador Lenore, Dominic Pooney, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings.
And as KP says, might be able to switch those last two.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just not so sure. I mean, if we were just doing stats, because Ayuk might miss a lot of time, but, week 15, Ayuk's going to be a better player than Juwan Jennings.
Yeah.
Right. That's the way
you make it to the playoffs. It's
could go the other way.
Our passing game is going through Brandon Ayuk, not Juwan Jennings.
Right. And we still know that things can go haywire when it comes. Brandon Ayuk's dealing with a lot worse than whatever Christian McCaffrey and Trent Williams were dealing with last year in the summertime, right? And Christian McCaffrey barely played at all for the 49ers. And so you never know with all the stuff that's going on in Brandon Ayuk's knee, even though, according to John Lynch, things are tracking in the right direction. Last part of this, Croc, of those 10 players, where do we draw the line for the names that I submit to the network for consideration for the NFL Top 100? Like realistic guys that would be on the top 100 NFL players in the NFL this season. Is it after Purdy at 6? Is that where it stops?
I think it's after Lenore.
Okay, after 7. So you would put Lenore in. Would you put Lenore in his own tier, or would you put him in the Purdy, McCaffrey, Williams tier?
I think he's in like his own tier.
Okay, I like it.
So it's like, the first 3, the next 3. Lenore is in that 3rd tier, and then 4th tier is the other guys.
Pooney, Ayuk, Jennings,
or Schutz.
Pooney could be in the Lenore tier.
Yeah, he can't. I don't think Lenore has stacked seasons.
Lenore could actually get voted into the top 100. Pooney, as awesome as he is, would not get voted in, even if he was deserving. I mean, you think about it, like the average team is only going to have 3 guys on the list, right? Yeah. So there we go. What do you guys think? Let us know. Who are your top 10? How would you rank them? Any honorable mentions? We'd love to hear them. And how would you tier these guys out for the San Francisco 49ers going into 2025? And stay tuned when we unveil the Locked On Podcast Network top 100 NFL players for 2025 later on in this off season. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen. Make sure you're subbed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. You can comment on YouTube as well, and hit that notification bell, the thumbs up and all that, so you are in tune when we go live here with another episode of Locked On 49ers, like tomorrow, right here, Locked On 49ers.